CNN reports Biden says he has decided how to respond to attack in Jordan. He didn't say exactly how, but the previous reporting was that Biden was considering striking Iran directly. And I mean the Iranian government, their naval vessels in the Persian Gulf in response to the drone attack that killed 3 and injured 34. This, many speculate, could ignite World War III. I gotta be honest, guys. I don't care for is it World War III, because it's been said 50 million times over the past 2 years by a ton of different politicians across Europe. It may be already happening, but I will say this has been, I think it's very clear the administration's intention was to target Iran directly. Lindsey Graham called for it.
Right.
Many other politicians called for it. And this would be a unilateral declaration of war against a major nation. People in the United States don't understand. They hear Iran and they think Iraq. You look at the map, Iraq is not the same as Iran. Iran is a massive, mountainous, developed nation with resources. The reason why it was easy for the United States to go into Iraq and Afghanistan, lesser developed nations. The reason why the U.S. has struggled to go after Iran, surface-to-air missiles. And the U.S. relies on air superiority plus the mountainous country. Going to war with Iran would be massive. I mean, the biggest war since, I don't even know. I imagine, it's hard to say because during the Cold War period, all these are basically proxy wars, Vietnam, Korea, etc. But a war with Iran would be massive. Joe Biden may be on the brink of making that move. And we can only hope that if he does, Iran decides not to make a formal declaration.
I'm hoping that too. One thing I would say is that it wouldn't just be a war with Iran, though. It would also be a war with Syria. It would presumptively, potentially at least, be a war with Iraq. Their government could end up getting overthrown by the Shia majority. And then they install someone that will side with the Iranians and the Syrians too. It would be the most major conflict, at the very least, that we've been in since Vietnam. Technically since World War II, actually.
I don't know enough about the differing views between Iran and Afghanistan or the Taliban, but I'm wondering...
Well, they're Sunni, I think, mainly.
Right. So I'm wondering what the possibility that Iran goes to the Taliban and says, we can maintain those weapons and that equipment for you. Have fun. Right? Weaponize the Taliban against the United States and the U.S.'s allies in the region with all of the weapons left by the United States in Afghanistan. I swear it's like they did it on purpose. It's absolutely insane that we are facing war with Iran, and literally next door is billions of dollars in war machines left by Joe Biden's failed administration.
Well, Iran has its own weapons systems too. They're no slouches when it comes to missile systems. They've done pretty well for themselves.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to achieve air superiority, but definitely trying to occupy an area that size is a little bit different from going into Gaza or something like that.
Plus oil.
I think that people are underestimating the risk, actually. And my hope is that Biden doesn't get his false flag event or whatever else he needs to start a war there. He gets shuffled out of office. Trump is back. He knows how to negotiate with these countries. And then hopefully we can put the genie back in the bottle. That's the biggest hope.
Do you think it could hold on for that long, though?
I really hope so.
Yeah.
Because, the alternative is millions of dead people, probably.
I know.
So
it's not good. That's the hardest thing about the Biden administration, which is that it is volatile and also seems to benefit from the anxiety it creates in voters. So in some ways, I could see a scenario where, Joe Biden, I don't know how consciously, but wants the American voters to think we're on the brink of war for as long as possible, which ultimately creates a much more unstable position with any other foreign government that we're negotiating with.
The real danger, though, is that that America's enemies would like Biden to be reelected. And being a wartime president tends to lead to higher reelectability. Now, I don't know if that's the case because Trump is also, he's a former president, so the metric is different than we've seen in a long time. But the real risk is that Iran will deliberately antagonize, or one of these other countries, specifically to get Joe Biden reelected.
Wild. It's crazy how obvious it is that the international community regards Trump as the stronger of the two candidates.
Well, I was just thinking, what if Trump starts negotiating with people, with the assumption that he'll be in charge? Because it's kind of like we saw a little bit of that with the whole Texas thing when he said...
He was saying send people.
Right. I was like, huh.
And when that happened, when Trump said, other states who support Texas, you should send your National Guards, there was a moment where I thought Democrats are going to, again, go after him for saying an insurrection.
I was afraid to even say that, but it's Donald
Trump is effectively attempting to act as though he is the president. like the acting president or pseudo president in exile or something. It's basically an election strategy. It seems to be working. He's 4 points ahead in the RCP aggregate almost.
Yeah,
I mean, he's running 6.5 points ahead of where he was at any time in 2016, almost 15 points ahead of where he was in 2020. It's actually massive.
and he's about to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this man can do it all.
Peace. Keyword.
That is true. Key word. It is interesting that Trump has clearly cemented himself, in my opinion, as the Republican nominee going forward, and we're still sort of dancing around the primaries like this is going to be a thing that happens. Do you have thoughts on Nikki Haley's statement that she's going to stay until Super Tuesday?
Wow.
She's going to get humiliated in her home state, and she either drops out then or she stubbornly stays in through the very end, hoping that Donald Trump croaks or is disqualified in a brokered convention. One of those two things will happen. She either drops right after or she stays in through the whole thing and never drops. And just as a thorn in the side.
We're doing a live event on March 5th that I was like, we'll do a live Super Tuesday event, which makes no sense, to be completely honest, because it's not really Super Tuesday. It's this weird pseudo primary where
It's
everybody...
Trump Tuesday.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But because Nikki Haley keeps screeching like a banshee from the background, people are like, I guess there's some kind of race going on. Yeah, so I feel I honestly, I feel bad calling it a Super Tuesday event. Maybe we should just call it like Trump wins again Tuesday.
Just an average Tuesday in November
Yeah, right, in
2024.
March.
Taco
Just an average
Exactly.
Tuesday.
You should do Taco Tuesday in here, and everyone eats tacos and just like sits there and
Oh,
laughs
hey,
at
look
Nikki
at that.
Haley.
Nikki Haley was getting votes for some reason. Anyway,
Oh, she's 80 points behind.
I was watching MSNBC the night of the Iowa caucus, and they're all sort of anxious and upset about what's going on. They're like, well, I mean, what Trump's team is really trying to figure out is if he can get more than 50%, because, you know, that's the victory they actually want. We don't think he's going to get it. And then he pulled it like 51. And then New Hampshire was even higher.
And then I loved it how DeSantis edged her out. I was so grateful about that. Like, I was never Team DeSantis, but I swore up and down I would never insult DeSantis or any of his influencers again, and I hold by that, if he managed to edge her out in Iowa despite being behind in the polls. Just by 2 points, but it was just enough so that Nikki Haley, she didn't even have time to change her speech. You remember that?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it clearly
It's
she
a
expected to come in.
two-person race.
It's a two-person race. Well, who are these two people?
I am not one of them.
yeah, but then Ron dropped out.
Yeah.
You know?
So maybe she's just psychic. Maybe she knew she was pressuring Ron to get out. She's such a strange candidate to me because she seems so unlikable. And I think South Carolina is going to be so rough. I mean, are there any other South Carolina leading elected officials that can endorse her? I mean, Henry McMaster's has always been behind Trump.
They've all endorsed Trump.
They've all endorsed Trump.
It's just about here's a question though. You can answer. Who's more dislikable, Kamala Harris or Nikki Haley? Because for me, it's difficult to actually determine because they're similar in many ways. So
I guess. I wonder what's like. The only way I can rephrase it is if someone called you one of the two, which would be more insulting, and I don't know that either. Do you have a guess on who?
Well,
Trump-
wait, what you're saying?
Nikki Haley versus Kamala Harris. Which one is more unlikable?
Kamala Harris. And if someone called me Nikki Haley, I'd be like, hey. If someone called me Kamala Harris, I'd be like, hey.
That's true.
Like, Kamala Harris is accused of many things in order to build up her career. With
I
Willie
think
Brown,
no,
you know what I mean?
Nikki Haley is too.
Is she really?
What?
Yeah, no, she had several allegations that she had affairs. Did she?
and at the very
Just
least,
recently.
she
But-
made her
but-
husband change his name, which
Yeah, but that's
unusual.
But like the thing about Nikki Haley is, I'll put it this way: would you rather be called a slut or a warmonger? It's like I don't know. It's a good question.
Well,
because-
Nikki Haley's both apparently too.
Well, but I was gonna say
See,
'cause
this is the problem. I see
warmongers
them
are
as
evil.
equivalent.
Oh, all right. Well, that's what I was saying. It's like they're not necessarily one's not necessarily better than the other. Like some people would rather be a harlot than someone who goes and bombs kids. You know what I mean?
I'd rather be a harlot than bomb kids.
See, that's the difficult thing.
I think both of them want to be both, though. That's the problem.
Which is
Yeah, that's
also
true.
upsetting.
That's really that's like a funny bit. Kamala Harris and Nikki Haley arguing with each other in a VP debate over who was going to kill more kids.
It's even worse because they have to become one
Do
to
you
get
think
the other one.
Nikki Haley isn't going to be Trump's VP?
Nope.
No.
Who do you think Trump would pick as a VP?
I don't know exactly who, but here's my general thoughts. It'll either be a charismatic female, so someone like a Carrie Lake or a Tulsi Gabbard, or a non-charismatic male. Trump cannot be on stage with another charismatic male who will steal anything of the spotlight. That's why he chose Pence to sit in the background. That's why I don't think it'll be Ramaswamy or Tucker Carlson. They'd both be fine choices, but I think they're off the table. Non-charismatic, unassuming, like a Tim Scott male.
Like Doug Burgum. That's what I think.
If it's female,
Burgomania.
Trump has no problem with a fiery female being.
It's got to
his
be a
running
lady.
mate.
I think Kristi Noem is a good choice for him.
Yes.
VP is not about the second best. It's about who gets Trump a demographic he doesn't get. Kristi Noem can help him get suburban women.
Absolutely.
Especially considering what's going on with Joe Biden, economics in schools. You get a middle-aged woman with charisma, and Trump is it's great. He needs that.
Yeah,
I think
Kristi Noem is definitely in the top 3 or 4. I think Tulsi Gabbard's probably up there too.
I think
you
she'd
could
be fantastic.
you could definitely do worse. She has really had a redemption arc, number 1, and number 2, she is very well spoken.
Yeah, she's got a lot of charisma.
And she's a former Dem, so she brings potentially some left-leaning independents to say, well, Donald Cho, she used to be the Democrat. I'm kind of a soft Democrat.
And
maybe it could work.
Anti-war leftists would be like, don't like Trump, but I think Tulsi in there is good.
Absolutely.
This is why I was saying in 2020 that if Trump chose Andrew Yang as an economic advisor and announced that he'd be a cabinet position and Tulsi Gabbard as national security advisor, he'd win in a landslide. Of course, the left took that statement and clipped out the part where I said he's going to win in a landslide and cut out the context of if he legalized marijuana, pardoned all the people in federal prison over marijuana dealing, and then made Tulsi Gabbard. But I digress. Tulsi Gabbard, as someone advising him on national security, is exactly what most populists want to hear. No wars. There was an amazing article, I think it was, who was it, Pat Buchanan, the American conservative, whatever, it said fire Bolton, hire Tulsi Gabbard. This is a conservative firebrand saying Tulsi Gabbard should be in that position because she won't get us involved in these garbage wars. We can all agree, hey, we don't like her policy on guns or whatever. She's evolved on these issues, but she was against nuclear energy and she was for gun control. These are bad things. But she has military service. She opposes foreign intervention, and put her in that position. And Trump's jumping several points.
The military service part would be a big thing as well, especially since one of the things Trump is going to have to do if he's reelected is reform the military.
Oh yeah.
He's got to de-wokify it. You've got to get the recruitment levels up, preferably keep it stateside or in allied countries and not send it over into Iran like Biden apparently plans possibly to do. If he's going to do that, having a VP who could go directly to the troops, who could go to like the recruitment center and stuff and actually like level with people, I think would be very, very important.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.